Hey everyone. In this video, I'm going to talk about ideologies, what they are, why I think that they're dangerous and maladaptive, and hopefully I can offer a conceptual frame that can help you identify what ideologies are and help you stay away from them as well. I'm going to try to interweave my understanding of knowledge and knowledge structures, primarily using ideas that I've come across from Jordan Peterson. As most of you know, I listen to him quite frequently, but more so I'm going to pull from the developmental psychologist Jean Piaget and some of his books that I've read over the years. So what is an ideology? An ideology is a type of belief system. Let's spend some time talking about beliefs, and I'll come back to why an ideology isn't just a belief system, but it's a type of belief system. Humans are ignorant in a fundamental way. There are many things that we don't know, and there are many things that we can't know. Given that deep level of ignorance, we often make assumptions about the world and about objects or facts in the environment and various phenomena, so that way we can act. If we didn't make assumptions about those gaps in our knowledge structures, if we didn't make assumptions about those gaps in our knowledge structures, then we wouldn't be able to act. We would be indecisive, and we would spend our time trying to close those gaps in our knowledge structures and fix our ignorance. So a belief is a knowledge structure. That's one way to think about it. It's an embodied proposition. It can be something that you state semantically, linguistically. It could also be something that you act out. And I'm a believer that actions speak louder than words. And so if you want to get a feel for a person's beliefs, you should watch their actions. And this is the same thing that you can do with yourself. If in your mind, in your conscious self, you tell yourself that you believe one thing, but you act out something else, this is something that everyone can wrestle with for themselves. Which belief is more true and which belief is more valid? And so if I want to train for a marathon and I believe that I'm a good marathon runner, I believe that I'm disciplined, but I'm not sticking to the plan that I made for myself, I'm not stretching every day when I need to, I'm not doing what I know I should be doing, given that stated belief, you could say that, well, my actions aren't aligned with those stated beliefs. And you could even argue, if you believe that actions speak louder than words, that I don't really want to be a marathon runner, and I don't really want to run marathons and be an athlete. So beliefs can be embodied and acted out. They can be inferred from behavior, and they could also be something that you state. But like I mentioned, I place more weight personally on a person's actions. So beliefs are crucial given our ignorance, and they also play a major role in our psychobiology. So our perception, let me back up. Part of that eternal ignorance that is part and parcel of human nature is also the inability to perceive everything in the environment or perceive everything in your visual field. And so the way your eye is set up, your vision is most acute at the center, at the fovea, and then as you move outwards towards the periphery of your visual field, things get less acute. Your vision is less accurate and less precise. It gets blurry out here in the periphery. And so when you want to perceive something in the environment, you not only move your eyes, but you also move your head, your neck, your torso, and you orient your whole body. So perception and action are complementary psychophysiological phenomena. I would go as far as to say that there's no perception without an action, and there's no action without a perception. What's the saying? To see is to look, to hear is to listen. I think I'm butchering that. Might have got it from Oliver Sacks, but we are active agents when it comes to perceiving the world. So given that we can't see everything at once, we have to select how we actively perceive the world. We have to select what we actively attend to. And so the question arises about how we go about navigating the environment. And one answer would be that perception is random. For many reasons, that's not a good answer. Another answer is that we orient our perceptions and behaviors in relation to a given goal. This is something that James Gibson talked about. He wrote a book called The Ecological Approach to Visual Perception, and he believed that we saw affordances. And an affordance is like you could also say it's an embodied knowledge structure, but it's a meaning or a purpose, a functional meaning in the object. So, for example, right now I'm sitting on the chair. So when I perceive the chair affords me sitting. It affords sit ability. So when I look at the chair, I see something that can afford sitting. Or if I had a pencil, the pencil could afford writing. It could also afford stabbing. It could afford a toy if I want to twirl it or something. So objects have many affordances, but for Gibson, what we saw was the utility that the environment afforded to us given our goals, because objects can afford many things, but you don't see all of those things all the time. You see what you need to see to move forward in your day and to act accordingly. So one way that we organize our perceptions and actions is we orient them towards goals. Now, just as there's too many things to look at in the environment, there's also many goals that we have to reconcile. So how do we reconcile our goals? One answer would be that we value these goals differently. And I'm sure people can understand this in their lives. You have your basic goals, your motivations, your drives. You want to eat, you need to sleep. You don't want to be too hot, too cold. You also have many social goals. You want to interact with other people. You want to play. You want to have fun. You want to ascend your status hierarchy. You have many goals, and these goals can be nested in a hierarchy where currently I'm talking to this camera. And so my goal is to hopefully sound somewhat professional and articulate when I'm speaking to the camera. So why am I speaking to the camera? Well, because I want to communicate something to the broader public. Why do I want to communicate something to the broader public? Because I think these ideas are useful. Why am I trying to communicate useful ideas to the public? Because I think that to the degree that I can do my job well and that these ideas are in fact useful, they'll reduce unnecessary suffering for people. So in this perceptual behavioral loop that I'm doing right here, speaking to this camera, there are nested goals that I could tie to a higher order goal of wanting to reduce unnecessary suffering for people. So we have many goals. We have to organize them. One of the ways that you can conceptualize how you organize your goals is by weighting them differently, meaning that you place more salience or more relevance, I think is a term that John Vervaeke used, on some goals over others. That way they're prioritized, and whatever's your highest ranking goal is the one that orients your perceptions and actions. The values that you use to organize your goals and thus organize your perceptions and actions could also be conceptualized as beliefs. When you value one goal over another, you're believing that it is better to pursue this goal over another. So I might use the terms of values and beliefs interchangeably as we move through the conversation. So beliefs are very important. Beliefs constrain what you have to pay attention to by protecting you from your own ignorance, essentially, and allowing you to forget that you're very ignorant. Right now I could be worried about my mother. I could worry about the health of my wife. I could be worried about, maybe there's a electrical problem in the apartment and it's about to explode, but I assume that my mother is fine. I believe and assume that my wife is fine, and I assume and believe that the apartment is functioning properly. So I don't have to worry about those things. I could just sit in here and do what I need to do. Now, I could be wrong. I could obviously be wrong, but that's just part of how we navigate the world, given the evidence and given past experience and given different internal probabilistic mechanisms that we utilize to make these beliefs and assumptions. So our beliefs constrain entropy. That's one way to think about it. They constrain the chaos that could overwhelm us if we didn't make those assumptions and continue to ruminate in our ignorance. And they also orient our perceptions and actions. They also regulate our emotions quickly. Well, that's not very quickly. Our goals also help regulate our emotions, because when you think about positive emotion, you think about enthusiasm or engagement, curiosity, kind of forward movement or drive. I'm pulling this from Affective Neuroscience by Jaak Panksepp and other books as well. Positive emotion is felt as you see yourself moving towards a goal, as you're approaching cues in the environment that predict reward. And that's different from consummatory reward or more satisfactory reward where you're content. That's a different type of positive emotion. But the positive emotion that's engaging and fills you with enthusiasm, that's dopaminergically mediated, and it manifests itself as you see yourself move towards a goal. So if you don't have a goal, you don't have any positive emotion, or if your goals are not well organized and they're in conflict, you not only don't have positive emotion, but you may actually have negative emotion in the form of anxiety and frustration and fear and confusion. So it's important to have your goals organized and to have them clarified. So your goals, your beliefs organize your goals, and they organize your goals organize your perceptions and actions, and they regulate your emotions. So your beliefs are very important. They also constrain entropy, and they help you live in the world given your fundamental ignorance. So all of that to talk about beliefs and understand the importance of why ideologies emerge. Ideologies emerge because beliefs emerge, and because without beliefs we wouldn't be able to act, we wouldn't be able to see, we wouldn't be able to regulate our emotions, and we just wouldn't be able to navigate in the world. So beliefs are extremely important. Switching gears a little bit, now I want to talk about, I suppose, how we come to know these beliefs, or how we come to establish these knowledge structures, and how we learn about affordances, and how we develop our knowledge of the environment. So Jean Piaget was a developmental psychologist. I believe he was a Swiss developmental psychologist, and he also was referred to, and I believe referred to himself as a genetic epistemologist. So he was interested in the development of knowledge structures, the generation of knowledge structures. And one of his theories was called the theory of equilibration, and he talks about this in 2 books. I'm by no means a Jean Piaget expert. I'm just very interested in his ideas, and I've only read a few of his books, so might get this wrong, but he talks about equilibration at least in the development of thought and in Play, Dreams, and Imitation. Highly recommend the latter book. His theory of equilibration was as follows. So children, organisms, which talk about humans, children are born with sensory motor schemas. And so a schema is a representation of a knowledge structure, or it's an embodied knowledge structure. So it's similar to an affordance, where if you grasp a ball, that's a schema. If you dribble a ball, that's a schema. If you, as a baby, they're born with these innate reflexes, which you could also call them sensory motor schemas. They have the startle reflex, I believe. They can move their eyes. They have prehension, so they can grasp things. They can feed, they can suck. And so they have these basic movements, and they can interact with the world given these basic movements, these basic schemas. So Piaget believed that when your schemas were working, so when the baby was trying to feed, and comes here and then actually is successfully feeding and latches on, that's the state of equilibration. So your schemas are interacting with the environment in a manner that allows you to obtain your goal. Now, the next stage of equilibration would be either non-balance or disequilibration, or a disturbed state or a disturbance. Can't remember the actual term. But essentially what happens in the next stage is that you're applying your schemas to the environment, but you don't get what you want. And so at this point, your schemas have proven themselves to be insufficient in your environment. Your knowledge structures are not capable of allowing you to move forward and obtain your goals, given the obstacle or whatever anomaly you've encountered. Again, indication of ignorance. People might get anxious. This could be distressing to some people when you're in this state of disturbance. Piaget said that here the child will engage in exploratory or even random behaviors to try to modify those schemas. And two types of adaptation or schema modification are called assimilation and accommodation. And for Piaget, they were complementary and they were on a spectrum. So assimilation is where you are encountering an object and you retool your conceptualization of the object to better fit your schema. So if I'm trying to grasp at an object and I miss it, or maybe I thought it was a bigger shape or something, this might be a horrible example, but I retool how I'm looking at the object and how I'm understanding it, and I'm slightly modifying my grasping so that way I can successfully get the object. So that's assimilation. You change your conception of the object to better fit your schema. That's also related to play. Accommodation, which is related to imitation, is where you change your schema while, to some degree, to a large degree, maintaining the current conception of the object. So instead of grasping the object, let's say for some reason I can't pick it up, I keep trying to grasp it, but instead I accidentally knock it over. So this might be the first time that I knocked something over or I punched something. So now I developed the new schema of punching that's similar to grasping because it still requires a somewhat similar movement, but it's also something different. And assimilation and accommodation are two adaptation methods that spiral around each other. I believe Piaget said there's no assimilation without accommodation, there's no accommodation without assimilation. So once you've adapted and you've modified your schemas or you've retooled your conception of the world or the object, you now have a new, more updated, more sophisticated schema that allows you to navigate the world and obtain your goal. You've accounted for the anomalous experience, you've updated your systems, your schemas, your knowledge structures, and now you're better equipped. And so you're at a higher level of adaptation, and that final stage would be re-equilibration. So you're in an equilibrated state, something anomalous happens, you update your schemas, and now you're at a better state where your schemas are more adaptive and more sophisticated. Okay, how does this relate to ideologies? I think that an ideology is a set of maladaptive schemas. So remember I said an ideology is a type of belief. You could think of a belief as a schema as well. I think that an ideology is a unsophisticated it's a half schema essentially. So what are some examples of ideologies? So I'm thinking about cultural ideologies that are out there today. One of them would be critical race theory, and I'm loosely speaking about it. I'm not most well-read on it. Let's say that the idea is that all white people are evil and all black people are good. The thing is, that schema is probably half true. You can see evil people who are white, and you can see good people who are black. So to the degree that you're using that schema to operate in the world, and let's say your environment is one that facilitates that type of schema, you could actually move through the world. You could actually navigate somewhat successfully. Now the problem is, the reality is that everyone has the capacity to be evil. So it's half true. Yes, there are evil white people and there are good black people, but there are also good white people and there are evil black people. So an ideology is a type of belief system that simplifies the world in a manner that allows you to get by, but that's it, no more. It's a minimal viable product. Something that I've noticed, and I've also read about ideologies and people who are ideologically captured, is that they don't want to continue going through that adaptation process. They're not willing to update their schemas, those ideologies, those half schemas, those maladaptive schemas. They're not willing to update, and they also continually affirm the truth and the validity of their schemas. And the thing philosophically there is that, again, oftentimes an ideology has a kernel of truth, or it's at least halfway true. So the danger in continually reinforcing your own ideology or accepting an ideology, and again, I don't think I said this, but you don't have to have an ideology. It's one type of belief system. Another type of belief system would be one that's more akin to Piaget's continual process of updating your schemas. You can be someone who doesn't have to identify with set static schemas, but you can be someone who identifies with the process of transforming your knowledge structures continually towards, I don't know, towards the ultimate truth, towards God, whatever, however you want to put it. But it's better to be aligned with the process of adaptive development and the continual generation of sophisticated knowledge structures rather than remaining static and blind to the truth of anomalous experiences that could help you break out of an ideology, or that can help you become a better person, become a wiser person, become someone who can help other people along the same path. So we need belief systems. There's no getting around them. A belief system organizes your perceptions and actions, and it regulates your emotions, and it protects you from the chaotic world. People may adopt a ideology, which is a maladaptive type of belief system, because it's easy, it's simple, but it only tells half the truth, it only tells half the story. So I would encourage everyone to understand that this is something that Carl Rogers talked about as well. You're not a static creature, you're a dynamic creature. You should I would encourage you to identify with the process of generating knowledge and do your best to resist getting stuck with any one schema. Or another way to put it is to understand that you're on a continual process of generating new schemas, and some of your schemas are going to be foundational and fundamental, and they've been useful, and they've been useful for humanity forever, and those are great. At the same time, having that flexibility to modify the schemas when necessary and when appropriate, given new experience. So thanks everyone for listening, and I'll see you in the next video.